My parents passed away when I was 16 years old. You have no other way to survive. The only way to survive is maybe being a robber, being a thief. They end up into these gangs where you can buy guns from the black market. And so some of my friends even end up seeing them being shot dead.
Welcome everyone to another Words of Rizdom podcast. Today I am joined by my brother, literally brother-in-law, and overall amazing person as well with an incredible story. I just headed straight over, Dr. David Opar.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. Yeah.
I know we've talked about it for a while now, haven't we?
I know.
And I know you're not someone who really does like content or puts yourself out there too much. Well, you get roped into TikToks with Sarah. So
Yeah, a little bit of that, but for a podcast, it'll be the first time I'm doing it. So
definitely. Well, thank you for coming on, man. And well, as always, I know you, of course, but why don't you tell us a bit about your background, a bit about yourself?
Okay, I don't know where to start, but
Start from the very beginning. Yeah,
the very beginning, right from the top. Okay, then. So my name, like you've mentioned, is David Opar. I'm a development scientist by profession. I work all the way up there in Scotland.
Cold old Scotland.
Yeah, I love the place. Energy storage company called Integrated Graphene. So that's where I've been based for the past 1 year now.
Mm-hmm.
If I take it back to my right from the start, I'm a Kenyan. I was born in Kenya, raised in Kenya. Most part of my life has been in Kenya, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in a very, very, very rough area, like what you'll call a slum, or some people call it a ghetto. An area called Huruma, back in Nairobi in Kenya. So very rough area. Everything is like literally the house you grew in. I'm in a family of 4, like myself, 2 elder brothers and 1 younger sister. So like where we were raised up is like a picture room, which is like just even this studio is big enough. The room is like 3 meters by maybe 3 meters.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
Which is like a box basically. Yeah.
Like a box. And it's like partitioned by a curtain where like the parents will be sleeping on one side, then you guys on the other side, then like your kitchen area. So like it's self-contained on its own, but and the funny thing is when you grow up in such a setting, because everything around you is the same, your neighbors live the same way. Because you live in a flat in like 8 floors, and in one floor you have like 16 houses. Those are like 16 rooms.
Yeah.
And each room like holds a family of 4, 5, some even 6. You all share one toilet, one bathroom. So it was mad, like looking back, like compared to where I am, where we came from. It's really crazy, yeah. But that's where we grew up in.
But at the time, do you feel like, because as you say, like everyone, your neighbors, all living in the exact same conditions, is it kind of like not that you don't know any different, but is there kind of a sense of normal at the time?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, to add on that as well, is when you live in such a setting, you don't really dream of anything. You don't really look forward to something. You're just living day by day. Like you live for the next meal, Life is a routine. You're happy where you are. You have your friends. You play in the mud. There is sewer lines running all over the place. And you're sort of used to that environment. And the fact that you don't have any role models like to look up to, like maybe there's someone in the family who's maybe a doctor or is doing so well in life or this or that. There's no one. So you tend to be absorbed in that environment.
Yeah.
That's all you ever know. Like even to dream of even flying abroad, I never dreamt of that until way past my high school. That's when I thought that maybe, okay, the way the trajectory of my life is going, maybe one day I might fly out to a different country and maybe experience a different culture. But back then, all those years, 15, 16, 17 years, you're just happy there, wherever you are. because all you grow up knowing is that, like for example, like I'm saying, where we were brought up in, the three main things which I'll say people will sort of try, like you'll end up either being a drug addict, because that's majority of the people around you are into alcohol and drugs and all sorts of things. Then the other thing is being like going into armed robbery and stuff like that. I have a number of my friends who took down that route because you have no other way to survive. So the only way to survive is maybe being a robber, being a thief. So they end up into these gangs where you can buy guns from the black market and such sort of things. And the unfortunate event is some of my friends even end up seeing them being shot dead on the street because that's the path they took. And in such a path, you don't really go far in that life. The other pathway that some took is maybe being a professional footballer, because football is the main sport which like majority of the kids in the estate will be playing. So the only thing you can dream is maybe I'll be a good footballer from here, then I'll progress and maybe play for the national team or maybe the local team around. Maybe that is be as a profession. And the last one will be education. And for us, like for our family, our parents were very, very strict on that. Like education was everything to them. They were like, you're way out of this life, you're way out of this environment, this slum dwelling. You'll need to find a way, like a path through education. Because my dad was an insurance broker, while my mom was a nurse. So for my dad, his theory, or like what he really tried to instill into us, was education is like an insurance. It may never pay out now or next year or in 2 years' time, but further down the line, it will come to pay out, because what you put in your mind, in your head, no one will ever come and steal it from you, for example. There are so many things you can try to achieve and it can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Even like a relationship, like a partner, a parent.
Yeah.
All those things can be taken from you. But whatever you develop in your mind, in your head, be it a skill set, be it knowledge of something, no one can ever take that from you. So you may not see the value of it now, but later on in life, you'll come to see the value of it. So me and my siblings, that's all, like we stuck on it. And as you're going to see, like my journey has just been through that, like trying to be better and better, like through life.
No, definitely. And I think that what you said there is very, very powerful, because it's true. No one can take your knowledge, no one can take what you've learnt, your experience in particular as well. And it's so powerful because, again, you don't know when it will become useful, when it will, especially when backed with action. A lot of people, they do struggle with the fact they may have learned something and then they're trying to apply it and it's not doing anything right now. But as you say, maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, but it will, through that action and using that knowledge. Definitely very powerful. And also what you've said there is very interesting, because it kind of goes back to the point of how you observe your surroundings. So a lot of the individuals that you mentioned there would have observed that these were the chosen, that, like you said, the 5 paths, either a drug addict, or whether it's armed robbery, so like criminality, football, or education. I think the 4, was it 4? I got it wrong. But yeah, so like, or the 5th one is do nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, but do nothing. But because of the environment, that was the options that were available. A lot of people would have chosen the easier route, if you will, which are the first 2. The third one being football, probably backed by some passion and hoping. And I'm sure there were people who did do well, right? But in terms of education as well, education's a hard choice. It's not the easy choice either, because of the cost, right? The cost, especially in Kenya, I know, can be very, very difficult to get educated, right?
Yeah.
But obviously from your story from there, you had some hardships that came along, no doubt.
Yeah.
So what did you know what you wanted to do in terms of education?
When I was young, no, to be honest. Because the thing is, we had this like reward system in the family where like our parents will be like, if you become the top in your class, or it was mainly the top 3
Mm.
in your class, you're going to be rewarded, you're going to be given a gift or maybe something nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of what me and my brothers and my sister just tried to achieve, just being top of your class, because, you know, there's a goal at the end of the day. There's something, there's a reward that your parents will give you. And on the flip side, because, like, again, the culture where we grew up in, like, being beaten by our parents is a norm,
Yeah.
where we call it discipline,
Yeah.
which I know, for example, in this country is something
Yeah.
not acceptable at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for us, you know that if, for example, if you do something wrong, you'll be punished.
Mm.
And even, like, right now, I remember we had this conversation recently with my work colleagues, and we all view it differently, like, based on your culture and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, like the few Africans, we still look at it and say, like, it did help us in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because our parents knew how to do it,
Yeah.
knew how to discipline you. And it's like the way you'll be disciplined by one hand, but then the other hand is full of love. They'll bring you close and tell you, like, do you understand why we did this? Do you understand why you're disciplined? But next time, you won't end up doing the same thing. So discipline was a very key thing growing up. So if you combine that, being a disciplined child, and then knowing if I get out of line, I'll end up either, like I said, being a drug addict, or going the very, very dangerous route. Because if I try to link that with the surrounding again, there are days you'll walk to school, you see people being mugged in front of you, people being stabbed because they refused maybe to give up their watch or money or something. Like, I've seen people being killed in front of your very eyes. And that was way back when I was still in primary school. So it's like there's all this trauma around you. But then again, like I said, you're used to that environment. You know, this is where we live and this is the norm. I'm just a school kid. I'm going to school.
Yeah.
No one will harm me. It's only the older people who have money or something.
Yeah.
But then again, you know that school, like you keep remembering, school is my way out. So I have to stay in this narrow path. So yeah, no goal, didn't know what I wanted to become. I just knew I need to become the best in the next exam, the best in the next exam.
Just one step
class
at a
to
time.
another.
Yeah.
Until I only came to know what I wanted to become way, way later, when I was doing my final exam, like before going to uni and stuff. Because at that point, you're made to decide, like, for example, which course are you going to do
Yeah.
in uni. And at that point, unfortunately, my parents had passed away. My parents passed away when I was 16 years old. So back then in 2005, my dad passed away in January. Then later, the same year, 9 months after, in September, my mom passed away. So that was a very, very tough and dark moment in our life. I'm a person who has been brought up in a church community. Like, faith is a very strong part of me. And looking back, I've had moments like later in life, especially this year, as you know. But back then, that was the first thing which really shook me, really shook my faith, and really wondered, like, is there really a God? Why is this happening to us? Like, what did you do? First, your dad is gone. Before you know it, your mom is gone. And then, because you used to see people passing away, like, for example, in our environment, our neighbors and stuff. And you grow up thinking, no, this will never happen to us.
Yeah.
This will never happen to us. You always are living in that bubble thinking, no, we are fine, you're fine. Until that day when you get that call. I remember both times I was in school because I went to a boarding school. So that's the other thing again in Kenya. Like, schools, the boarding school here, for example, in the UK, are the posh schools, I'll say. Like, sort of,
I think so, yeah. Like,
school.
normally, yeah, for boarding schools, they will be posh. They're normally private schools as well, yeah.
But Kenya is the opposite.
Is it?
That's where you'll go. You'll get bullied and stuff. Yeah, like you'll wash other people's clothes and stuff like that. Yeah, so it was another rough moment in school. But then again, you go into the system knowing I'll be bullied.
Was it away from your, like, where you lived?
Yeah.
Quite, was it?
Yeah. Like quite far where you go there, you live. 3 months in school, 1 month off, then another 3 months, 1 month, then another 3 months. So, yeah, like in both cases, that's when
You were there.
I received the news. Like, or just taken off from school, not knowing what happened. It's until when I reached home, then I was told, I find the house is full of people and this tiny room, like full of people, wondering what's happening. Then they broke the news to me. And that was like a week after.
Wow.
My dad had passed away because they were wondering, they don't want to disrupt me from school and stuff like that. Really, really heartbreaking. And later on the same year, they came again. And the second time I knew, damn, same thing has happened. Was why are they coming? Yeah. They never come to school, like my relatives, my uncles and stuff. They never come to visit me, like in the middle of like a school term. Yeah. So yeah, that moment in life, like I said, it really shook my faith. I really doubted everything that I've ever believed in. Doubt if there's a God, anyone who cares about us and stuff. But we had to ride it through. Tough moment. And the following, it was even worse because it was the final year. Yeah. Before now I can move on to uni. Like you need to excel from there now to go to a good uni. Because if you don't do well in that final year in high school, then it's like you're out. Yeah. Your life is like,
it's done then.
What are you going to do? Because again, most of the Western world, you might have like different pathways. People have different pathways. There are more opportunities you can do with your life. Yeah. But like where I came from is like, if you didn't do well in your schooling, like your education, it's just, you just feel like your life is done. Like,
then you only have 2 options left.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a tough year. And it was around the same time when now I knew, okay, I'll go to uni and do something to do with engineering or anything closely related to that. Yeah. Only because one of my cousin was already in uni and he advised me like, you're in a course, do this. Yeah. So that's how it all started.
But during that period, there was only 4, both your parents passing away, unfortunately, in such a short space of time. And you were at the time, 15, 16-ish. So then you had a younger sibling as well as just 2 older siblings. So then, what was that process like? I'm sure there was probably a lot of struggle, especially in the beginning. But I know that, from knowing you, of course, that your brother stepped up and, really took charge. But like, what, did he need help with that? Or was it more so he just kind of went out there and obviously did what had to be done?
It was a very tough moment for him because unfortunately it's something which I never really want to think of or try to remember. The fact that you would expect like your broader family will come in and help you, your relatives and stuff. Yeah. Being a kid, that's what you'll expect. Like, your parents have been taken away, then they'll step up. And majority did say like during the funeral, like, we'll come, we'll do this for you guys, don't worry, everything will be sorted and stuff. But sad to say, it never really happened. Like everyone just went along with their day-to-day life. Yeah. Once the burial is done and everything was done, and we were back there again, the 4 of us huddled together wondering, what the hell are we going to do? Luckily for my sister, my aunts, the sisters to my mom, took her with them, like to take care of her because she was the only girl. She was young. Yeah. For the rest of us, they wanted to split us up, like you go to this family, you go to this family and stuff. But my elder brother was like, no. One, the dying wishes of my mom was, if anything is to happen to her now that dad is no longer there, we should never be split up because they raise us as a family, as a unit. And they believe there is power in staying together as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what, just stay together. You'll figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first step which my brother did. At that point, he was doing his pharmacy course. So unfortunately, he had to step down from uni and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like, there's no point of him continuing studying if there's no one to provide for us.
Yeah.
I need money and food, shelter, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Our second born was in uni at the time. So we were all sort of, no one has any sort of income.
Mm-hmm.
So it was him who just decided, you guys continue on with school. I'll figure things out. He started doing all sorts of jobs, painting jobs, construction, just this day-to-day job.
Yeah,
where
like
you go,
cash in hand type stuff. Yeah.
Where you go in the morning,
Short
like,
term.
there's something you can do today,
Yeah,
there's something you can
yeah.
do today. So that's all he did. Like, he took the role of a father, a mother, and a brother to us. And we went to even much smaller, like an even tinier house at that point. We went days whereby you just have a meal a day and you are, like, you just go on with life because you know that's all you can manage to afford. Because all he did tell us is like, don't focus into trying to get any job or like trying to make any money. I'll do it. You guys just continue pushing on with what mom and dad used to say. Just keep on studying. That's our way out. I'll figure out how to look for money to buy a meal or this and that. And it was a tough, like really, really tough time, like changing lifestyle. Yes, we didn't come from like a high lifestyle to a low.
Yeah.
But still you're moving from low to like
Lower.
super low. So
Yeah.
where you'll go, like we moved to this building whereby the entire day they ration the electricity. So you don't have power the entire day.
Oh, okay.
They only switch it on at
X
night.
amount of time.
Yeah, like just for a short period of time at night.
Mm.
Then again, the entire day, there's no power. So, yeah, we went through that. We rode through it. But it's funny because I was very young at the time. But still, I was very laser focused, I would say, in terms of knowing, okay, I need to continue pushing on. Because you live in a society whereby you have all these things happening to you. You don't have any time to process them. Just push them away. Push them away. Say,
well, I think you say that, but
going.
Yeah, but I think you say that, but a lot of people, they do spend, they allow themselves to focus on the problem, you know, focus on this pain, this suffering. And by doing so, it just creates more pain and suffering and consumes them. Well, as you said, a very powerful thought process is to, okay, this is happening. We're in this. You know, me thinking about it isn't going to change anything, but potentially me focusing on what, you know, I need to do and to make steps forward, then therefore could change something, you know. And plus, as you say, like knowing the wishes of, and essentially this is where I talk about like legacy, you know, the legacy, continuing the legacy of what your parents did and wanted for you as well. So then you have this, when you think about it in that sense, in terms of legacy, you know, you have a very powerful why, you know, why I will go through this suffering to then achieve this goal, the next goal, and to elevate the life that we live, you know. One thing I will ask you, know, when you're in that situation of living in those sort of conditions and that's your environment, the goal, for example, while everyone, you meet probably a lot of people here now and their goals, and you've been to, we'll get to these points, but you've been to other countries too, and they live obviously in much better environments, you know. Even for the lower standards in those countries are much higher than the lower standards, you know, in your country, for example. But have you found that, or did you find that the goal wasn't to, like, at that point, I want to be a millionaire, I want to, you know, have private jets or all the fancy cars, etc. Was the goal just literally, I want a better life, you know, even if it's just to have power, you know, to have power, to have free meals. Is that the case?
Yeah. Because I would say, like you're saying, it's more so to move to the next step, moving to a point whereby you're able to cater for your meals on your own, moving to the next step whereby you're able to rent a house which is maybe like a 1-bedroom, or maybe finally you're moving from a communal toilet and bathroom to a self-contained house where you have your own toilet and bathroom in the house. So they're those small gains, I'll say, but in the grand scheme of things, they mean so much to you.
Yeah.
When you get to that level. So, for example, when I finally, after uni, I got a job and started working, I felt so much elevated, being able to get a salary. I can pay my own rent. I was able to move in a better house, a better neighborhood. I was able now to take care of my sister because we had to take our sister from our aunt's place and start living with us now. So I was able to take care of her as well. So being in that position whereby now you have responsibilities, now you're able to look after yourself and others around you. It makes you feel like the whole process was very worthwhile, getting to where you are. Yes, of course, the more you get, the more you feel like I can move another step forward.
Yeah.
I'm able to move now to even a much bigger house. Now you start to dream and start believing, okay, there are things I can achieve.
Yeah. So do you think it's like kind of, you start to actually feel, you start to actually, you're putting in all this work, you're starting to make changes in your life. It's opening sort of a bigger horizon in your mind in terms of what's possible or what I can achieve. And then you get to the point, as you say, like, I could go to another country, especially because now you have the skill set in order to do so.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next transition you make, right? From Kenya. Where did you go next after that?
The first place was, I was lucky enough to go to a scholarship to come to the UK. So I came to do a master's degree here in Newcastle in petroleum geochemistry. So that was the first time flying out of the country. Oh no, actually before that I remember I went to Spain.
Oh.
Luckily, like through my work for a training there. So it was like within a week I went to Spain, then
That was at the same time?
Scotland, then went back to Kenya. Then I think 2 months after, then I now came back to the UK now for my master. So all these things happen within a very short period of time, and I was wondering, like, what's happening to my life? Like, from not being able to even dream of even flying from one city within the country to another, to taking your first flight outside the country, and now you're going to study. Or like, for example, going to Barcelona, being able to visit like the massive stadium there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big football fan,
Of
so
course, yeah.
it was all like you're living in a dream still. Like the whole entire thing happened so fast, and you wonder, like, finally things are working out.
Yeah.
Like that saying which my dad always used to say, that this
Insurance.
will be insurance, this will come to work out at one point. It was all coming alive finally. So yeah, I moved here. I was here for 1 year doing my master's, which at that time it was a bit challenging in a way, because you come to a new country, new culture, then you've moved from a very different sort of mindset and society and everything, moving to the western side, like the West and everything. So everything felt so foreign to me. Everything felt so like way above my levels. Like, how am I even going to...
Just so far out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Like, to converse to people, you go in a hotel, you have this, all this, eating with a knife and fork and all those sort of things. I'm like, how am I going to do all these things? Like, you just feel like you're completely out of your comfort zone. You've gone to a place where you have no family, no friends. Sort it out. Try to adapt. Luckily, we came, a few of us, like during that time, like we were a few Kenyans.
Okay.
So at least we managed to live
Get a
sort
few.
of a bubble. But at the same time, like, looking back, it wasn't really the best thing for us to do. Because you stay in that bubble, you end up not exposing yourself to other things.
Yeah.
So,
But how did you find it though? So, like, obviously, was it, as you say, it was like a, like a dream, if you will, like you just seeing things that probably were maybe a luxury for many people, is now kind of in abundance in some sense, pretty much everywhere. And the people, you probably came across a lot of people who have never experienced or even observed the sort of conditions and environments that you have observed in your life, let alone growing up in. And therefore, did you see a sense of maybe a lack of gratitude, a lack of awareness, Did you come across a lot of people like that?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of ignorant people as well. People first see you, for example, the first time you speak, they even wonder, oh, you guys know English, like you speak English. You're like, which world are you living in?
Yeah.
So there are all these micro aggressions going on and stuff. So, but at the time, your confidence level is also very, very low because you haven't really been around this sort of society before.
Yeah.
So like you sort of put, like I used to sort of put the people here on a pedestal in a way.
Yeah,
whereby you look up to them, thinking that they know better, they do better. It's only until after the first few exams in uni and like all the way, like when I graduated, I ended up graduating top of my class, and then I realized like, oh wow,
you're the best.
I can actually come to a foreign country and even do better than the people who've grown up there and lived up there. So by that point, my mindset now started to evolve.
Yeah, that's good.
Started to shift and started to feel like I sort of belong. Yes, I'm not really from here, but I can come here and compete
with anyone.
With people who are here.
Yeah. It's kind of like opening that sort of mindset, understanding your self-belief.
Yeah.
Probably a big thing. And it makes sense though why, being in the environment you've been and living the life that you've lived, then you start interacting with people who have potentially what some would consider lived a better life, right? Or an easier life, right? And therefore you'd probably think they must be better than me. They must have had better opportunity, etc. But then at the end of the day, it just proves the point that the knowledge, it doesn't matter about what you've done or who you know or how comfortable your life may have been. It all comes down to who's got the stronger work ethic, the drive, and the correct mindset. And it just proves, obviously, that once again. And one thing I will ask you, obviously, in Kenya, did you face much racism in Kenya? Because I would imagine, obviously, there are a lot of multicultures in Nairobi, for example. There's a lot of Asian people there. But did you ever come across much racism there in comparison to how I would imagine coming over to the UK? Would it be different?
There, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Because...
Was it really a thing then? So, like, was it kind of a shock to the system when then you traveled to, say, Newcastle?
It was a shock. It was a big shock, yeah. Because I remember the first time it happened to me and my friends. We went to this club. It's a posh club and stuff. You're like, oh, let's go see what's going on there.
Yeah.
Then you just stop from the door and you're told, no, we can't go in because we ask why. We're all dressed up nicely in nice suits and stuff. You're told no because you're in a group. But then just behind us, there was this group of other people who just walked in and they were allowed to go in, and you're like, oh, okay. It's all due to our color. They're just not telling us, but they clearly don't want us there. So we had moments, we had things going against our way, and you could just tell this sort of micro aggressions, I'll call it, because it's not really like racism to your face, but it's something which can just infer like
you always feel it. Yeah, you can always feel
you're not welcome. But by that point, I think we're just so much focused with what brought us here, which was uni. We were just here for 1 year. So we didn't really pay much attention to it. You're just like, okay, it's fine. We come, do our thing, then go back home. So, yeah.
No, I'm glad. And like you say, like you learn from it. And again, it's a similar thing. Like a lot of people can get sour or let it distract their vision because I think sometimes you hear people use it as an excuse, but yet you guys, by the sounds of it, stayed focused, understood that, okay, it's not good, obviously. It shouldn't happen. And no doubt, when was that? That was probably your master's. How long ago was that?
2014.
Yeah, it's not a crazy long time ago. No. Not at all. But yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. It still happens to this day, no doubt.
Sadly, yeah.
But yeah, from there, obviously, you did go back home. But then eventually, before I say eventually, you then somehow met my sister. I don't know how. I don't know how you did that. But I think she was volunteering, right? She was volunteering in Kenya.
Yeah, she was.
And yeah, I think, is it like a family for you? and is her university friend, I think. Yeah.
A uni friend, or rather her best friend from uni here, is my cousin. And it's funny enough because we are not interacted much with my cousin until we met here. Like when I came for my master's, that's when I met her and interacted well with her and stuff. Then she graduated before me. She went back home to Kenya. Then when I went back home, I was like, oh, like I'll come pay your visit and stuff. So when I went to see her, at the same time, Sarah, that is your sister, was there as well. She was doing a volunteer work and she was staying with them. So that's how we met. Yeah, started talking and stuff. And the rest is history.
That's it. That's it. Did you ever think you would marry a non-Kenyan?
Never.
No?
Never in a million years, no.
Just happened. Fate.
No.
Fated. But that's, And then I remember the first time I met you, I came home. I think I was out. I don't know if I was at gym or work or something. I came home and then I remember I came in, you were sat down and then you stood up to shake my hand and I was like, because you're so tall. I was like, hey man.
Nervous at the time. I was very nervous.
No, I don't know why though. I don't know why. But no, like, even from like literally meeting you straight away in terms of your character and your demeanor, you could tell like, it's sort of like a heart of gold, if you will, or good intention,
Thank you.
And I think it's quite rare nowadays to be able to sense that easily. A lot of the time nowadays, unfortunately, we have to play a bit of a longer game to see people's intentions and see people's character and their energy. But with yourself, it's quite rare to then be able to meet someone and say, okay, this guy's got good character, good head on his shoulders, good intention, and I'm sure people can tell as well. And it probably maybe even a testament because of your story, because of your what you've lived through, how you've actually then seen progress, through sticking to the right path. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people, they pick the wrong path and they see, I won't say progress, but they see results, if you will, from choosing that. For, let's say, robbing people, they're seeing money, they're seeing items that they wouldn't have, but it's just reinforcing the bad behavior. While with you've actually went through the harder path, decided to stay educated, even through, that's where a lot of people, when losing parents, for example, they can lose their way very easily. Especially if they lose their faith or not lose it, but have doubts. Definitely in those moments is when bad influence, and I'm sure they probably might, were there anyone who came along who tried to influence you in a negative way at the time? Maybe old friends who were just like, hey man, like I can help you here if you need help, that sort of thing?
I would say not really. No,
that's good.
That's
really
good. Yeah.
But I've seen it where people, when they go through that experience, can very easily be led astray, not even on purpose, just because they're in a moment of weakness or sadness, naturally so. And
the only thing I would say is what did happen around that time after my parents passed and stuff was majority of people, like be it family members and stuff, there are a good number of people who, like I was saying, we won't amount to anything now. Like your support system is gone, your parents are gone, your brother's dropped from school and stuff. So all they saw was just failure. And sort of what they wanted was like you being under their thumb and stuff.
Okay,
like, either work for them or come
take advantage basically.
They'll control you and stuff like that. While you decided like we'll just stick on our own, do our own thing, and one way or another we'll figure it out. So like when you look back right now, when me and my siblings sometimes sit down and you look back, we're like, we are glad you never listened to all the naysayers saying like you won't amount to anything, unless you do this, you do that.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because who knows where you could have been, and it just shows that if you stick to your vision, not give in to someone else's, or again, it's very similar in terms of, we have, when people try and tell you this is the right way, this is the right path. So what's interesting is, in your situation, the education was the best path, right? To allow you to elevate and get out of that environment and improve your environment, right? While a lot of the time here, though education's still good and it can open many doors and still has its benefits, of course, but a lot of the narrative you see in the Western world, and especially on social media, is think outside the box. Don't be a slave to the system. Don't go to school and etc. But I never say school is bad, but all I say is if you want more, like you want more than the normal life, then you do have to think outside the box. But the interesting thing is thinking outside the box in Kenya. Surely there are obviously entrepreneurs, etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of thinking outside the box of going against the educational route is a negative route
Yeah.
for the most part. So therefore, it's interesting to see how actually in your situation, sticking to the education is what got you through and got you to be where you are now, right?
Yeah.
So interesting enough, obviously you got married to my sister, and then what was it? I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks later.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
so 1
mad.
week or 2 weeks later, you decided to fly out. You didn't like it that much that you left straight away, right?
Like I'm gone.
But no, like you had the opportunity. Where did it come around? I remember it was quite like quick, wasn't it? It just happened.
Yeah. I didn't get because I remember when I was doing after my master's, I went back. I was working, and it was like the job I was working in. It was a oil and gas company. I was just like, I'm not getting enough based on the skills I have, based on the knowledge I have.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to find another way, like to move another step.
Yeah.
And that, like, the funny thing, like you asked me earlier, like, did I ever dream? Same thing will be like, I never thought at any point I'll ever do a master's degree. It's so weird how the opportunity came up and I was like, it's a scholarship, okay, fine, I'll do it. Same to, like, from the master's. From there, I thought, no, this is the end of it. I'm not doing any further studies, no PhD, no nothing. But then after I went back to work, I felt like I'm stuck in one thing. And I think that the fact that I'd already lived here, my mindset, like I said earlier, it already started to change, like to see way, way further.
Yeah.
Like now, I started to dream, to envision myself, like one day I want to have my own company and stuff. Then when I met your sister Sarah and stuff, when you were discussing about things, she was telling me of a dream, like to start a hospital in Kenya because of the volunteer work she was doing there. Like she had this dream, like she wants to start a hospital. And I was like, and to name it after your father, like to carry on with the legacy and stuff. So I was like, we sort of aligned in a way whereby our visions were way, way further now. Like looking at things which at one point I never even imagined I'll ever look at things that way.
Yeah.
Because by that point, both our lives, like you've shared it in your podcast as well, like the things you guys have gone through and the things I'd gone through, like we both felt like the best way to live this life is to elevate ourselves in a way whereby we can now be able to give back to the community.
Exactly, yeah.
Give back to the society. And that has always been my goal. So after that, I decided this company is not really taking me the way I expected it to be. And I needed to find another way out. And that's when I started looking for a PhD. And luckily I got that scholarship, South Korea. And I was like, it's very, very far. Because I was looking one in US and Canada mainly.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky. I got one in the Far East. And I said, new country, new culture, new language. I'll do it. I'll take the risk. Same way I've taken all the other risks before. I'll take the risk. And yeah, so we got married. Unfortunately, 1 week, boom, I had to leave, start my PhD. So that's how I ended up leaving. And I remember on my first week there, you came and you joined me there as well.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we did that. And we'll talk about that as well. But in terms of South Korea, what was it? Did you like research before you went?
Not really, because I remember the one thing I knew about Korea that time was like the whole nuclear stuff.
the North Korea side.
Yeah, I was a bit worried when I got the PhD, but then I thought there are people living there. And the one thing I knew about them was their technological gains they've made.
Yeah.
Like the number of products coming from there. And my PhD was on nanochemistry.
Yeah.
So I felt like maybe this is the best place for me to move.
Of course, yeah.
To the best place for me to learn about this very niche area of study. So
yeah, and then you went over there. I remember, I joined you in your first week to just, I guess, have someone there and look around and explore. And I think we did. Yeah, I remember you were going to university at the time. I remember I went to the mountains by myself. I went to our mountains. I'll be honest with you, though, I've always said to you as well, I say to everyone, like the best mountains I've been to are the ones in Korea. Like it was just like magical, honestly. Like it was really random though. I had to convince a taxi driver to find it for me somehow. And then I remember like it was literally like there's houses, and then suddenly it's just this walkway to the mountains, and I was like, it was so strange.
Random place.
It was amazing. But then in those mountains they had like literally you're just walking, and then suddenly there's a pathway this way that there's a full Buddhist temple like out of movies. And then you walk that way, it keeps going to the mountain. It was incredible, honestly. Probably my favorite experience. But I remember afterwards we went and got like a pizza. We found a Domino's there. What a place there. I remember we were cooking with this tiny little knife. And neither of us, I didn't know how to cook. I don't know about you. We did.
I knew how to cook, but not using those. I remember it was such a tiny knife. It's actually Mom who was like,
he's on FaceTime to us. Good times there, man, honestly. But then you ended up staying there. How long were you there for? You were there 2 years?
I was there for four years. Yeah.
Way longer than I thought. Way longer than I thought. But 4 years, yeah. And how did you find, obviously, that's a whole different culture in comparison to, because at this point your horizon was obviously more like like European, rather than the Eastern side. So like, what was it like then moving to there after spending this new time in the UK? Suddenly now you're in Korea, a whole different culture.
It was very very, very different. Very difficult at first.
Yeah, because then you've learned English.
Yeah.
And then you've gone to Korea and they didn't really speak English there.
Not as much. So it was really hard. I remember the first week, like after you left, because when you're there, you were using taxis and stuff. Then after you left, I said, let me use the train for the first time. I got lost. I got completely lost. I didn't know where the house is, because the subway stations are massive, like you remember. Like you come out there like 8 exits or 9 exits.
Yeah.
And you don't know which exit will take you to the house. So the language was a hard one.
Yeah.
The food was difficult as well. The culture was difficult. But the fact that I was already there, and the fact that I knew I'd already gone through so many challenges in life and overcome them, I knew one way or another, I'll just have to use the same method again.
Yeah.
Just accept where I am, accept my environment, try to immerse myself into the culture. And the first thing was try and learn their language, because once they know that you know their language, they appreciate you even more, they accept you even more. So that was the first step, going to YouTube, learning the language. Then I just slowly by slowly just kept pushing on to immerse myself to their culture. It was a very difficult time in my life, I would say, as well, because I was there, like as you know, for my PhD, and I would say maybe every PhD student will say the same thing. That's probably one of their worst moments in life. Like that's the one time when I felt like quitting and just taking the flight home and stuff. Because the one thing was, I was away from my family, my siblings. I was away from my wife as well. So it was a very, very difficult time.
Because you're by yourself,
pretty
much. Like, because obviously when you did your masters, you had a little group of you, right?
Stuff,
and then when you were working back in Kenya,
English as well here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then you're just isolated, right? And then with PhDs, it's a process of essentially trying to create a thesis, develop something new, create something. So therefore, you're going through the process of Edison, for example. Failure, and you're alone, isolated. Can't really speak to anyone around you because they're all either Korean or they're probably Korean, don't speak English. So then you're learning the language. So I can imagine the hardship. And what's interesting though is that, as you say, like every step you took and progressed in and succeeded in was just the next goal. So it wasn't, I want to have a PhD from the beginning.
No.
Right? And it is good to have goals, of course, and big goals and to have these visions. But in terms of actually tackling it and accomplishing it, it's always going to be one step at a time. So you can always do the other opposite way, where you actually just take one goal at a time and keep moving forward. So then you found yourself with your PhD. Now, this one presented, I would say, probably the most challenge, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
And how did you get through that? Because I know it wasn't easy, and as you said, there were times where you thought of quitting. But like, how did you overcome it? What was it that allowed you to overcome it?
I would say if I'm to look back in life, there are 3. The first thing will be faith, which encompasses everything. So for me, faith has always been a very, very big part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that belief of something, like you can see, like I know there's someone up there
Mm-hmm.
looking after me. There's someone who's always there guiding me through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm to take that out, like the next level would be, like there are three main components in life which have really pushed me to where I am,
Mm-hmm.
like right now. The first one I would say was my parents,
Mm-hmm.
how they brought us up, the morals they
Mm-hmm.
instill in us, the discipline they instill in us.
That legacy.
Yeah,
Mm.
putting us onto that narrow path,
Mm-hmm.
go on, keep on moving, keep on pushing.
Mm.
The second one, I would say, is my brother who now took their role
Mm.
and took care of us until today, like always. No matter what happens, no matter what you need, he's always the first one to say, he'll help, he'll
Mm-hmm.
do this, he'll do that. He sacrificed his happiness, he sacrificed his life for us, like to take care of us. So
Yeah.
even I remember after my PhD, I just dedicated that whole thing to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be there in the
Mm.
first place. Like he gave up his own happiness, his own school, which he later went back to and completed and everything. But just for us to be able to
Push
move
on. Yeah.
toil and sweat day after day. Then the third component, which now happened after like I joined your family,
Mm-hmm.
and that was mom, who I call her as my mom. And so many times I've told you guys, I've told her like how I'm very grateful in one lifetime. I've been blessed by two moms, my first mom and then her, because she took me in as her own child. She's treated me as her own child as well. And she really guided me through a lot of difficult moments while I was there. Like I was saying, like from the very start, the first day when you're trying to cook, she was there on the side, like trying to lead us on. From the very first day when I took the plane from here, going there, she downloaded the maps for me, like the English version. Like I didn't even know like how to do those things.
Yeah.
Ensured like, okay, from here, like she did most of the research for me while I was the one supposed to go there.
Mm.
So through all these challenges, through all these failures I was going through, feeling like I'm just tired of all this, I want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
She was there right behind me telling me like, no, you need to. Like I remember there's this one time she was on FaceTime with an onion, using an onion to explain to me how to think about my experiment, like how to go through my experiment, how like peeling off one layer at a time, one layer at a time, and using that analogy, combining with what I was writing on my thesis. It was unbelievable to say the least. Like the amount of knowledge she has is just, until today I don't know how much she's gathered it all in. So she really mentored me through all that, helped me develop my confidence and stuff. So I attribute a lot of that to her, like giving me that final push through my time there, being alone there. So, and it all came back together, like all those three aspects, they all work together towards me achieving my goal at the end of the day.
Definitely, and it's a strong why, you know. So it's not just backed by, I want the title of doctor, it's or PhD, you know. It's more so I have a reason, you know, very strong reason. You start stemming from the foundation, the legacy, you know, the lessons that were instilled in you, from the very start, and then the one who supported you to help you get to where you are, and then the one who's supporting you in the moment too. So it's like a very powerful combination. And at the end of the day, if you don't use these things as motivation or drive, or at least a rebalancing or realignment, especially in the face of pain or suffering or hardship, what else is going to get you there? You know, what else? Superficial things, or what's the word for it? Like material things. You know, even if you might have a material want. You know, that's not going to be deep enough to allow you to get through such hardship, you know?
But actually, there's something else I forgot to mention. Remember the first time you were there, that one night you went for a run?
We went for a run,
Like, let's go for a run. By that point in life, I hadn't run like for years, for decades and stuff. And you pushed me, and I remember you were like super fit. You wanted to
What
train
happened?
every
Hey,
day.
you're my witness.
Doing like
People don't believe me. I was in shape.
100-day thing. So
Mm.
I remember that day you were down the mountain and you're like you still need to get your run in. And I was like, man, Reyes, it's late. We need to sleep. And you're like, no, let's go. And it was midnight. I remember very well. And we went for this run. I was panting. I was struggling. But that day, you awakened something in me.
Mm.
Because from that day, when you went back and stuff, I now started to transition into working out, into getting myself into physical activity. By the time I was done with Korea, I had hiked all the biggest mountains there.
Mm.
In some of them, I was running actually up, like going up. I ended up cycling the entire Korea Lake, like cross country, 630 kilometers. So that was through mountains and stuff as well. Like it was a super, super challenging bike ride.
Yeah.
And you're not using these specialized bikes, which most like
People
the
are,
Tour de
yeah.
France guys will be using and stuff. You're using like a hybrid bike, which is quite heavy. It's like 13 kilos.
Yeah.
But I had to cycle it like over 5 days, morning till night. I was doing half marathons and stuff. So that side of I would say the physical activities I did really developed my mindset a lot.
Definitely.
It really helped me to culture that fighting spirit whereby you don't give up, no matter how painful it is. Because
especially doing marathons and cycles.
Yeah, the cycle ride was really, really tough.
What was one of the longest ones you did? You done?
Yeah, it was 630 kilometers.
In one go?
Yeah.
So that's roughly over 300 miles.
Yeah. That really pushed me beyond my limit. Whereby you go to bed, you're super tired, and you need to wake up the next day 5 a.m.
to do it again. Yeah.
Do it again and
Wow.
again and again. So those things
it develops the mindset, yeah. Because that's where you really test your mind, because your mind's going to tell you, hey, stop. Stop,
exactly.
And it's not only going to tell you stop like at night, it's going to tell you after like half an hour, stop, especially the next day, waking up 5 a.m., your mind's going to tell you, no, don't get up. You're tired. And then you have to not only get up, you have to then get ready and then get on the bike, start cycling. Again, your mind's going to say, no.
Yep.
So you're developing what, David Goggins says, a callous mind,
mind, exactly.
And, you can apply that to anything. So like traders, we talk about it a lot in trading, for example, to build that callous mind to losses, right? And especially in the learning stage, but generally to be a consistent trader, callous mind. But same with achieving a PhD, or achieving wanting to be a professional footballer. You're going to have to go through failure, injuries, etc. And without that callous mind, how do you expect to overcome the doubt that your own mind tries to put in there, let alone anyone else, right? So it's amazing to see. And I know that obviously now you've had this recent struggle with health, and therefore what the callous mind, has that helped even then, even though it's something that's kind of stopped you from allowing you to pursue the fitness on that higher level that you were doing?
I would say I think a part of me at that time, the human side came into being, whereby I really struggled to overcome that. Because I developed that callous mind over the past 4 years I was in South Korea. I remember I came back here last year. I was still doing my runs. I was still doing my cycle. I was still I enjoyed fitness a lot. The first thing in the morning, you have to push yourself. You have to once you're done with the gym, then you move to the next thing, either cycling or running and stuff. So, but like you mentioned, this year, I got this big health scare, and it was the second time my faith was really shaken, completely shaken and stuff. And this time round, it took the better of me, I would say. I had this pulmonary embolism. They found I had done almost a half marathon sort of thing.
Yeah.
The previous week, it was the month of Ramadan, so I was fasting and doing my runs. I was doing 30K runs every week and stuff. Then I did this run over the weekend, but after 2 or 3 kilometers, I couldn't run at all.
Yeah.
And I wondered what's happening. I couldn't breathe. I was struggling to breathe, panting heavily. I couldn't hold my breath and stuff. And people were just passing through me because it was a race. I'd gone to And I wondered what's really happening. There's something wrong. But then because of that callous mind and because of that ego as well, because you see people running past you, I kept pushing myself. I got to a point around 5K, I was like, no, there's something really wrong. Started to look around for like the paramedics because they told us the paramedics will be around, but I couldn't see any. At one point I saw one. I thought of going towards it and telling them that there's something wrong with my breathing. I can't breathe at all. I'm used to running and I'm just not able to. But then as I approached it, I was like, no, that will just show how weak I am. No, I'll just keep on going. So I decided to keep on going. I tried another half kilometer. I couldn't do it. I ended up walking the entire way until the end. Yeah. Ended up walking, finishing. I was there with my friend. She had already finished. She was waiting for me. She was wondering, like what happened? We've been training together. We've been running fine. I was like, something is not right. Went back home. Sarah told me, like, there's something not right with your lungs. But then, as normal with most husbands, you're like, no. You just don't listen.
Yeah.
Like, we don't listen. Like, I'm at fault for that. So I ended up refusing to go to the hospital. She told me, go, you need to go see the doctor. I refused. The next day I went to work because of that drive again. I enjoy my work. Like, you want to go to the lab, continue doing experiments, learning new things. But then the following day, I went the first day, I really struggled. The following day, when I got to work, a distance which I normally walk within 10 minutes, it took me almost an hour to get to work. I got to work, I started to work again, like try out my experiments and stuff. And one of my colleagues noticed me and she was like, nope, you have to go to A&E ASAP. Rushed me to A&E. I couldn't really walk by that point because I think the thing had got worse. It took the doctors 2 days for them to figure out what's wrong. They kept coming one after the other, doing all these sorts of tests, saying there are things elevated. But the way they see me, I'm a fit person. They ask me, do you normally run? Do you do this? Do you do this? Like everything is tick. You're athletic and all that. But they're wondering, why is your heart not okay? Only later is when they found that I had these massive clots on both sides of my lungs. It just came from nowhere, because until today, 6 months down the line, they're still doing tests to find out what really caused them. So yeah, that really shook me a lot. I went into because during at that point I was in Scotland alone because my wife had come back down like to Weatherby and stuff to stay with mom. So I was a bit worried. I was alone. So it's only my friends were able to come and see him in the hospital, and they were not even allowed in the hospital due to COVID restrictions. So they just come, like drop food and stuff. You were just alone there, lying and wondering, starting to look back in life. Like life started to flash back, like all the things that you've got through, all the things that you've pushed yourself through, all the stress that you've got. And you're wondering, is your body just giving up now? Is it breaking down? And numerous times I thought I'll go to sleep and not wake up. That was my worry. And leading to that, I sort of fell into a depression, I'll say. It was the first time whereby my mental health was really affected. Because before I'll face things, I'll just push it on the side and keep on going. And that's when I realized in this world, everything else can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. Like I said, you'll keep on going. Loss, whatever thing, suffering, pain, anything. But once your health is taken away, that's the true test. That's when you really know, like, can you really move a level higher, or like that's the end of you?
Yeah.
And most people give up at that point. And I was almost at that point. I remember I was very, very stressed. I was very irritable. And the family could see it. Like, you all could notice there's something not right with me. And it was the first time, due to my culture again and the whole ego thing, being a man, you're like, no, I can't speak to anyone. I'll just be fine. I'll get through it. It's fine. But mom, again, pushed me through it. And she was like, just speak to someone about it. Give yourself the chance. Say, I'll just do it for 5 sessions. If it doesn't work out, fine, leave it. then it's not meant for you.
Mm.
But just like give it a try, because I noticed it was affecting a lot of my relationships around.
Mm.
I feel my colleagues noticed as well that I wasn't right at all, that I had changed and stuff. As much as I was trying to put a mask at work,
Of course, yeah.
because that's your place of work. You have to put this mask. But the moment you go home or the moment you're around your loved ones, that's when the real you comes out.
Mm.
The whole sad, depressed, and everything look comes in. So, but yeah, I would say speaking to someone did help. It was a really tough moment for me, and I would say, yeah, I was almost falling into depression if I wasn't there.
Mm.
And I would say maybe that was the first time that I really allowed everything to just calm down on me. That was the first time, like, I started looking back at things, started dealing with things, which for majority of my life, or rather my entire life, I will just move it aside, because you're like, life has to move on.
Yeah.
You have to keep on going. So
would you say sometimes, it will, if you just go past things without at least sort of trying to take them on board, or trying to absorb the lessons or absorb what's actually happened, it will eventually happen anyway, or overflow eventually. Yeah. So, it's good to continue on and push forward, but it's also, good to make sure that you take on board what's happened, you actually acknowledge and learn to accept in the moment too. Because otherwise, if we kind of just try to not ignore, but like just move on it without even trying to understand anything about what's taken place, then it will just boil over later. Yeah. But I'm glad to obviously, speaking wise has really helped and developing. I'm sure there's still struggles, no doubt.
Yeah, there are moments, like, there are times where I've just texted you, like, just to share things, just to so it's something I will encourage, especially men. Like, this is something, and I would say mainly men from maybe Asian, African, whereby we are brought up knowing that you're a man, you're supposed just to toughen up, harden up, like whatever you go through, keep it to yourself. It's good to speak. It's good to talk about things, because they can really wear you down and put you in a state which you might not be able to recover, or you might end up doing something crazy or stupid. Or,
That's it. And I feel like speaking, especially to the right people, allows you because they'll know you. You need to speak to people who actually know you. You have that close relationship with, because otherwise, people just give you the normal advice. Just come on, try. Think better. But at least when they know you, they'll at least be able to speak to you. The individual, the person, the soul, and be able to sort of give a different perspective sometimes, or give a fresh sense of at least support. So no, it's very good to hear, obviously, that there's been progress made on that front, and I know that with every day it will continue to get better and to progress too. How did you find your first podcast? Did you ever envision a podcast? Did you ever envision like social media or anything? No. I remember that when you did your when you did a post on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
After doing your PhD, and that went viral though. You remember?
I remember, yeah. It's something which I've never really thought of doing, because I've always lived a very private life, I'll say. So yeah, but over time I've been told, especially by my wife and my friends, like the ones who've heard my story, the ones who know about the challenges that I've gone through, they've always told me, like, it's good to share your story with someone. You never know the life will change. You never know that one child back in the slum where you grew up with, that's how they can reach up to them, and they can be like, if he made it out, there's hope. There's hope that I can do the same. Even if it's just one person, it will change their life. That's already a plus. So
that's what it's all about, yeah.
It's good. Like, I know you've tried to get me onto it, and I'm glad finally made the journey all the way from Scotland. Yeah.
That's it, man. Yeah. That's it. Like, because I know obviously your story, and I'm not trying to highlight just traders, because at the end of the day, it's about the journey, and not necessarily even just successful people, right? Because you're successful in what you do. But let's say even if it wasn't a successful person necessarily, but in terms of success, what is success? Who defines it? Is there actually a defined, this is what success is? Because success really could just be if someone's set out to be happier in life and they become happier in life, then they're successful, right? So yeah, like having Mum on, having yourself on, I want to try and get more people on in similar, just where they can tell their story, you know, and we really talk about the actual, you know, more, if anything, talk about the darker times, but also then how those darker times had good times afterwards, right? And though you may have suffered a darker time more recently, there will be, as you know, and as you've seen from your journey, some better times that come thereafter, you know? So yeah, and luckily for me, obviously I've had my audience is more worldwide, and I have, you remember that time when I was speaking to someone from Kenya, and I said, my brother-in-law's Kenyan, he didn't believe me. I said, I'll go get him. And I said, come. And all he said was like, hi, hello. But you are right though, in terms of, you know, our stories and our, you know, sharing our hard times, especially sharing, you know, the things that normally people don't talk about. You know, normally people don't talk about loss or being from, you know, say a slum or a ghetto, or you know, losing, you know, loved ones, mental health. You know, people don't talk about these things. It's just not normal, you know, but it can be normal. And if anything, it should be normal, because it leads to other people, as you say, being able to learn and grow, you know. Exactly. So it's a very powerful thing. But I think that wraps us up for today.
Yep.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. I will put your socials. I know you're not too active on socials, but I'll put your socials in the description anyway.
That's fine.
And yeah, well, I'm sure we'll do this again in the future.
Definitely.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for this episode. Feel free to let us know in the comments your thoughts and anything that you resonated with as well. And as always, make sure you subscribe, because half of you don't subscribe. So try and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and means we can get bigger and better guests on as well as we grow. But thank you as always for your support, and catch you on the next episode.